Okay, we're holding Parashat Vayigash and Vayechi. The beginning of the Parashat Vayigash, we see that Yehuda decides to approach Yosef head on. Everybody's upset. The brothers of Yosef are upset because of what happened. What happened with Binyamin. The cup, the Gavia of Yosef is found in the sack of Binyamin. Now they're all in trouble, but especially Binyamin, because Yosef is threatening to take him as a slave. Of course, Yaakov is going to be very shocked to see Binyamin missing. So it was a dangerous situation. Yehuda had promised to bring him home. So now there's confrontation. But part of the confrontation involves a little bit of guilt. On the one hand, they realize that something went wrong, and they're trying to figure out what went wrong. So Yehuda begins to speak harsh words. In other words, he builds it up. Why does he begin to speak harsh words? Whenever you see the words, by the way, yedaber, instead of yomar, see vayomer, vaydaber. Vaydaber is always stronger. Vayomer, he spoke, or he talked, he said something. Ledaber means to talk, means to say something very strongly.
Being assertive.
Being a lot more assertive. So Yehuda is all of a sudden being very assertive and even raising his tone. Why? Because he realized that something is not right. All along, he thought all the troubles that they had with Yosef, the reason why they were having a hard time, the reason why he was accusing them of all sorts of things, is because that had to do with their sins, perhaps, in the past. That's the right thing for anybody to believe. You know, when he sees himself having a hard time, he's in a situation that is very difficult, perhaps it's a form of Yisurim, Hashem is cleansing him from his sins. After all, they were guilty of selling Yosef. Maybe all that they were going through was because of the avon of Mechirat Yosef. Now, however, he realized that it can't be. There's something else, something that's not right over here. Why?
I'm sorry.
Because Binyamin was not involved. Binyamin was never involved in the Mechirah of Yosef, in the selling of Yosef. And here he's being accused. He's being taken as a slave. What did he do wrong? So now Yehuda therefore begins to suspect that there is an alilah here, there is a plot, a false accusation against them. And there's no basis, no foundation to all these accusations. Right? Because Binyamin should not suffer. What did he do wrong to deserve this? Right? Therefore, he begins to raise his tone. In other words, at first, they felt guilty. At first, they suspected perhaps it's their fault. But now that Binyamin is being singled out, he wasn't involved in the Mechirah of Yosef. It couldn't have been that he did something wrong. Therefore, it must be that these people are up to something, these Egyptian people. So he was ready to start fighting with them. If necessary, it was going to turn into a big fight. But Yehuda, nevertheless, does control himself and uses the words, I want to speak something to you in your ear. What does it mean to speak to you in your ear? Well, he was not hard of hearing. So what does he mean he wants to speak to him in his ear? It means I want to have a personal, private conversation with you one-on-one. And some say that he even knew that Yosef in reality speaks Hebrew, even though he was using a translator. I want to have because he's a king, he should know all the languages in the area at least. But for some reason he did not understand why Yosef needed a translator, who, by the way, he used his son.
But the king didn't know either Hebrew.
Well, the king did not know, right? But people who are in foreign affairs, people who are in foreign, who had deal with a lot of people, should know, right? So anyway, he wanted to have a private one-on-one talk, a much more personal talk. What's the whole idea of having a personal talk? So you should know that a personal talk, when a person has a private, direct talk with someone, it is very, very different than doing it through a translator, than doing even through the phone. Well, if you could meet someone and have a face-to-face talk, it leaves a completely different impression. Just like if you speak to someone in his language. If you're able to speak someone's language, his language, it makes a completely different impression on him than if you speak to him in some other language. You speak to him in his mentality, in his way, using the same gestures perhaps, same sense of humor. It makes a big difference. When people see each other and they talk, there's a lot being said that is apparent just on the face, just in the movement of hands. It's a whole completely different idea than to speak to someone through the phone or writing a letter. You don't see anything.
So the impression that one receives by having a personal private talk is very, very different. So he requested this because he wanted to impress on him the importance of having Binyamin return to his father, what this would mean if he does not, Halila, return to his father. So he wanted to impress upon him, to bring out perhaps some sensitivity, some compassion for the old man. That is why he's recommending, he's actually asking, begging for a private, personal talk. Because by doing it more direct, and especially without a translator, he would be hoping to get through to him. All right, the next point is that we find that Yosef passed away 10 years before his brothers. He lived to the age of 110. The other brothers lived longer, at least 10 years more. Yosef passed away earlier. Why? So one opinion that is brought down is that because he heard the words, Avdecha Avinu, your servant, our father, and he kept quiet. He's hearing the words, your servant, our father, was meaning Yaakov, which is a lack of kavod in a sense. It's his father, he shouldn't be his servant.
Yeah, but
right?
what could he have replied?
He could have said, please don't use that term. He's not my servant. I don't need to hear that. So some say as a result of hearing that term, that is, the father is a servant, he lost 10 years of his life. But if you look in the Torah, the word Avdecha Avinu is only mentioned 5 times. So why did he lose 10 years of his life? Because he heard it 5 times from his brother and 5 times from the translator. That is what one commentary says. So a total of 10 times that he heard the term Avdecha Avinu. Obviously there could be other reasons. There's other cheshbonot that we're unaware of, but these things can affect also. They can be used as an accusation against someone. You just think something as simple as this. Obviously it's not so simple, because it's a lack of kavod. He should have not allowed it. But he kept quiet, and as a result of keeping quiet, they subtracted 10 years from his life. Okay, something that we said last week that I'll repeat it again, that the brothers of Yosef had many questions all along. Why is all of this happening? What's going on with them? Why are they having such a tough time? So many accusations against them, right? Spies, etc. They didn't know what's going on. Until when? Until they heard the words, Ani Yosef. I am your brother Yosef. Once they heard that, then they understood everything. Everything made more sense now. Same thing the Hafez Chaim says, a lot of people will have many questions throughout the history. The Jewish people. Why are we suffering so much? Why are there so many tragedies, people dying, people getting killed in accidents, etc., etc., anti-Semitism, assimilation, a lot of problems. People will have questions. What is Hashem doing about it? Where is the Ashgacha, the supervision? As soon as Mashiach comes, and Hashem reveals himself and says, Ani Hashem, at that point we will understand everything. When Hashem declares, reveals, Ani Hashem, everybody will understand, will have a better understanding at least, what happened. In other words, that he has been in control, what the purpose of everything was. In the meantime, we don't understand. We have to trust, have faith in the Torah, what Hashem has promised, that in the end, everything will be good, and everything that happens in the meantime is also for the good. It has a good purpose, even though we don't see it. When Mashiach comes, everything will be much more self-apparent. All right, another point that is obvious in this parasha is, it's not directly obvious in the Pesukim, but somewhat. You see it from the conversation of Yosef and his brothers. What did they talk about after they met? Yehudah's argument, one of his arguments at least, was, Sir, how could you do this to Binyamin? Granted that he is guilty for stealing your cup, your goblet. But you know what's going to happen as a result of you imprisoning him or taking him as a slave? You're going to be causing so much pain and suffering to his father. Is that fair? So he made a mistake, so he did something not right. Is it fair to judge him and as a result punish his father too? Isn't that not right? What did his father do to deserve this kind of a pain? Why don't you consider that? Yosef, at the time he heard this argument, did not respond. When did he respond? After he revealed himself. Yehuda, you remember you had a question for me? That Binyamin is to blame. Why should his father be to blame? Why should he have to suffer all this pain? Why didn't you think about that question when you wanted to get me in trouble? When you wanted to sell me? When you wanted to kill me? Why didn't you think what our father would have out of this? What pain he would go through? At that time you did show a total lack of sensitivity to what will be of our father's feelings. But then too, okay, let's say I was guilty. Let's say you were right. And let's say I deserve it. But why does our father deserve to go through this pain? Why didn't you think about it then? This is something very, very powerful. And of course, that was a powerful answer. Of course you're right. Of course we have to consider what his feelings would be. But you didn't. And I was teaching you a lesson here. Of course, that's what you need to consider, and you should have considered that. All right, finally Yosef reveals himself. And what happens when Yosef reveals himself? He kisses everybody, he embraces everybody. But the most emotional one is Yosef and Binyamin. The Torah records that when they approach each other, it says, "Vayipol al tzavare Binyamin achiv, vayevku Binyamin bachal tzavarav." He fell on the tzavar, on the neck of Binyamin, his brother, and he cried, and Binyamin cried on his neck. What's this business here of each one crying on the other's neck? So the rabbis tell us that in Ruach HaKodesh, they were able to see the Holy Spirit. They were able to see the Hurban, the destruction of the temple, the two temples, which will be in the area controlled by Binyamin. Binyamin cries for Yosef because of Mishkan Shiloh, which will be located in the area of Yosef, which will be destroyed. Each one is crying about each other's destruction that will happen in the future. What's the point over here? The point is that the essence of the big fight that the brothers had with Yosef came about as a result of Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred, right? No real reason. The destruction of the temples will also have to do with that. Baseless hatred. There will be a lack of unity amongst Jews. And that is very dangerous. That destroys the whole fabric that holds together the Jewish people. Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred, which was rampant, unfortunately, even by observant Jews. It wasn't so much a lack of observance of Torah mitzvot. It was this that brought about more than anything else destruction of the second temple. What they were therefore demonstrating, what they were doing at the time when they met, is crying on each other's Khurban, not on their personal Khurban. I'm crying about your Khurban, about your destruction. You're crying about my destruction. Because that is the opposite of Sinat Chinam, is Ahavat Chinam. Baseless love. Love that does not depend, lo talib b'shum davar. Selfless love. What is that? That you're concerned about the other much more than you're concerned about your own, or at least as much. Yosef is crying for the Khurban of Binyamin, and Binyamin is crying for the Khurban of Yosef. That is the point that is inferred over here. Each one is crying for the other. That is Ahavat Chinam. To care about the other as you care about your own. Not to be selfish, which breeds baseless hatred. One thinks about his own things. No, be concerned and cry and feel for the other person's troubles. At least as much as you feel for your own. That is Ahavat Chinam. And that is a tikkun. That would be what is necessary to fix, to correct the Sinat Chinam, the baseless hatred. So the Khurban is caused by the baseless hatred. The Binyan Bet HaMikdash L'Ezrat Hashem will come about as a result of Ahavat Chinam. In other words, that there should be more unity where people will be concerned about each other, not just about themselves. And that is seen by each one falling on the other and crying for the other and thinking about the trouble of the other. Another important point that is seen throughout Parashat Vayigash and before is the whole plan and strategy that Yosef had. Yosef obviously has a plan. If one reads carefully the Psukim, the Torah, the Parashayot, he sees that Yosef is up to something. He's not just accusing them falsely. He's not having a fun time doing this to his brothers. And he doesn't really seriously plan to put them in jail. Obviously, Yosef is not the man that we know him to be, who's cruel, who takes revenge. Doesn't give that kind of impression. It's not too obvious. On the contrary, there appears to be a plan. How do I know this? Maybe he does want to take revenge, because every time he accuses them and says something, and they said something, when he goes back to his room, he cries. If you remember that, you read that? He went back into his room privately, and he cried privately. He was obviously very moved by this all. So something is going on in his mind. He had a plan. And we briefly spoke about it in the past, that he did not want to notify his father, did not want to write a letter. He was concerned that they may come after him. He was afraid that they haven't changed. This whole strategy, therefore, is also part of this. What he wants to see is teshuvah from his brothers. Regret, remorse, Not only that they changed, that they're different. Not only that they're not capable of doing what they did in the past. Not only that they're going to stand up for Binyamin, which is what he wanted to see, but he also wanted to see that they feel bad about what they did in the past, that they regret. So little by little, he gets them to say those words. That is what real teshuvah is. Real teshuvah involves or consists of three things. Vidui, charata, and kabbalah le'atid. Vidui means confession. To confess means to say verbally that what you did was wrong. Feel bad about it. Charata is to have the feeling inside, deep in the heart, of regret, of remorse. You feel bad. It pains you. And third is kabbalah le'atid. Kabbalah le'atid means is a commitment that for the future you will not do it. Whatever you used to do, you will stop doing it. This is the essence of teshuvah. Yosef saw these ideas in his brother. He saw them say, or he heard them say, "Aval Hashemim anachnu." We are guilty. Due to our avon, all of this is happening to us. It is because of what we did that this is coming, and we deserve it. In other words, they understood it. So by Yosef hearing this, he was able to notice that his brothers regretted what they did. Not only were they aware of their sin, they also regretted it, and they would not do this again. So part of his strategy was to bring that out of them. People have to be put sometimes into a situation where they will demonstrate regret. Otherwise, how do you know? How does Hashem know a person to? Of course, Hashem can read our mind and our hearts, but that's not enough. Hashem wants us to say it, because when we say it, it makes a tremendous impression on us. And once the words are said, they're acted upon a lot easier. If you keep something in your heart and your mind and you don't share it with anybody, you don't talk about it, it could be locked up there. What's required is action. A lot of people think of doing all sorts of things. They have plans, they have thoughts, ideas. They never carry them out. They don't initiate any action. Right? Any good deed has to be done b'machshava, b'dibur, b'maaseh. According to the Kabbalah, in all three areas. A person has to think about it, because that helps in his planning, his kavanah, his intention. He has to talk about it, because that reinforces it. And he has to do the maaseh. He has to actually do it. But all along, throughout this process, there could be hurdles. There are attempts to interfere, to stop. But one needs to remember the goal. The goal is to do a mitzvah all the way, not just the machshava, but to do it the maaseh. So here too, Yosef wanted to hear it from them. He wanted to see it. He wanted to be convinced that they have changed, that they have done teshuvah. And that is why part of his strategy was to figure that out and hear them. Besides the fact that he was afraid for his own life, he wanted to see if they were prepared to do the same thing as they did in the past, or they're going to stand up and fight for Binyamin, which is exactly what they were prepared to do. So therefore, Yosef is convinced of their sincerity, and at that point, he's prepared to reveal himself. It's not because Yehuda approached him and he was going to threaten him. Yosef felt at that point, when he saw him sticking up for Binyamin, he heard what they said about how guilty they feel. This is enough. I'm convinced, I'm prepared to reveal myself, and that's when he does that. Okay, let's go on to Parashat Vayechi. Parashat Vayigash and Vayechi are somewhat connected, because in the end of Parashat Vayigash, Torah says that Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation, settled in the land of Egypt, Beretz Goshen, Vayachazu ba, Vayefu v'rebu me'od, and they established themselves there, and they multiplied. There's an emphasis here about establishing oneself. And that's the connection to the words Vayechi, Yaakov, Beretz Mitzrayim, Shema Yisrael Shana. In Hebrew today, you could say something similar to this too. You could say, Efo tagar, Efo tahai. Even though most people don't use the words Efo tahai, where do you live? In English it sounds the same. Hai means to live, life. Gar means to have an abode. Where do you reside, actually? You need the correct English translation. What's the difference? Lagur comes from the root ger, foreigner, temporary. Hai means to live, to be settled in a place, not to think about moving. The Jewish nation, that is the connection you see from the last words of Parashat Vayigash in the beginning of Vayechi, is beginning to make roots in Egypt, to becoming established, and that is no good. Because as a result of making very, very strong roots in Egypt, later on, when they were about to leave, many Jews did not leave. They died in the Makat Choshech, in the plague of darkness, together with the Egyptians. Hashem did not want the Egyptians to see that the Jews dying, so that's why he made them die in the plague of darkness. They didn't deserve to go out. They didn't want to go out. They were left behind. How could this happen? Why didn't they have the same desire to leave? Because they had made strong roots. When a person makes strong roots, which is exactly what happened also to the Jews in Babylonia, all they were there was set for 70 years. That wasn't a long diaspora. They started their businesses. They made new roots, new friendships, right? It's difficult to leave, to pick yourself up, pack your bags, and let's go to Israel, a place which is desolate. There's no Beit HaMikdash. Have to start a new business. I don't have the same clientele. There's not as many customers, right? So of course there are difficulties, but Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael nevertheless. Only a little over 40,000 Jews came back from Babylonia. Could you imagine? To rebuild the second temple. Same thing here in Egypt. They are making roots, and that is making it difficult for them to leave the land, and that is why they were there for so long. The longer a person is in a place, the harder it is for him to leave. The Jewish people, therefore, by being there so much, made roots, forgot that they really belong in Eretz Yisrael. This only turned to be a temporary stop, not a permanent place. Next point. Why does the Torah reveal to us how many years Yaakov was in Mitzrayim, how many years he spent in Egypt? He spent in Egypt 17 years. What's so significant about that? We could figure this out by figuring out how long he lived, how old he was before he went down to Egypt. We know how long he was there. The Torah does not just record anything for no reason. There's not one extra word, not one extra letter in the Torah. So what's the purpose of telling us how long he lived? So the rabbis tell us these were his best years. These are the years that he actually lived. It says Vayechi, Yaakov. That is the meaning of the word Vayechi. He actually lived. He didn't just reside. He actually lived a true, good, comfortable life. These are the best 17 years of his life. The last 17 years, but the best 17 years that he had. He had many troubles, many struggles, and much pain, sorrow. The last 17 years of his life were Vayechi. These were the best years of his life. And that is why it says also Shanei Hayav again. The Torah emphasizes that this was really the best part of his life. People have different mazalot, different goralot, different destinies. Some people have a very good life all the way. Some people have a good early years or a good latter years. It all depends on the mazal. Of course, we have very little control of what kind of a life a person has, the quality of life that whether he will enjoy it or not. Nevertheless, one needs to know that everything is mi'ashamayim, rashgacha, everything is from Hashem. There's a cheshbon, there's a reason for everything. And if a person is having a difficult time, we shouldn't give up hope. Perhaps down the road things will change and he will begin to have a better life. One also needs to remember that the real good life is really in the Olam Haba. Even though that we don't call that life, it's because it's an eternity. It lasts forever. It's a spiritual enjoyment which cannot even be compared to any physical enjoyment. But the rabbis tell us, one moment there is worth an entire lifetime here. Just one moment there. 1 hour there. 1 moment there is worth much more than all the enjoyments. In other words, the moment or the hour of enjoyment there, spiritual, is greater than anything you can imagine having in this world. On the other hand, the rabbis tell us that 1 hour here is more precious than one there. Why? Because here you can still do the teshuvah, you can still do mitzvot and maasim to be once you get there you can. So the life here has, of course, value compared to the life there, because there you can't do anything. But enjoyment, the real enjoyment is no Olam Haba. So Yaakov obviously did not have too many good years, and that is because Hashem is preparing him a big share for Olam Haba in Gan Eden. Nevertheless, Torah records that his last 17 years, getting back with Yosef, being supported by Yosef, being in Egypt, without any troubles, were his best years. Okay. Then the Torah tells us that Vayikrevu Yimei Yisrael Lamud, the days of Yisrael, of Yaakov, are approaching. He's about to pass away. The Torah doesn't usually tell us the days are approaching. He lived, he passed away. Here the Torah says Vayikrevu. They approach. It says they approach because he lost a number of years. He did not live to the age of 175 or 180 like Abraham and Yitzhak. Usually a son lives close to the age of his forefathers. Give or take. A little more or a little less. He's only living to the total age of 147. So one reason is because he cursed. Remember the time he said, Lo Yahya? And that curse was a problem, a source of trouble for Rachel. Whoever has the terafim, whoever stole that idol from Laban, if you find him, will not live. In other words, he uttered what appears to be like a curse, will not live. And Rachel suffered as a result of this. She had the terafim. He did not know. But he too, as a result of saying something like that, he should not have said it, lost a number of years of his life. That is one reason. Another idea that is expressed here is what the Zohar says, Vayikrevu. Vayikrevu is when the time approaches, whether it's a number of days or weeks prior to a person's passing, the neshama knows that it's leaving this. It has a feeling. Because all of a sudden the tzelem, especially 30 days before, the tzelem, which is like an image that the neshama has, something on top of it, goes away. So the neshama, the individual, feels something is missing, and as the time is approaching, they can tell. Unless, of course, somebody passed away just like that, but if somebody's getting sick, somebody's about to die, he knows, he has a feeling. If he's sensitive, if he pays attention to himself, he may be able to figure that out. And that is as it gets very close. So the Zohar says, he understood that the time has approached, even though he was only 147. He felt it. And that is why he's about to call all his sons that he wants to bless. What does Yaakov do now? One of the first things he requests of Yosef is, don't bury me in Egypt. And how does he tell it to Yosef? He tells it in the following words. Simna in other words, swear to me that you will do with me chesed ve'emet. You will do with me kindness and truth. What's this kindness and truth? Kindness, we know what it is, what it means approximately. But what is this kindness and truth? The rabbis tell us chesed ve'emet is chesed shel emet. The truest form of kindness is when one takes care of the dead. In other words, when I pass away, take care of my body. That is the truest form of chesed. Chesed shel emet. Why? Because this is the...
Yaakov tells Yosef, I ask you one request. I ask of you. Do with me a chesed emet, which is a chesed shel emet, a true form of kindness. Don't bury me in Egypt. Bury me in Eretz Yisrael, B'kivrei Avotai, where my forefathers are. This is a tremendous mitzvah. That's the mitzvah of accompanying the dead, also the levaya. When you see somebody, a Jew, who passed away, even though you didn't know him, there's a mitzvah to accompany him. There's a mitzvah to be involved in the burial. Anything that has to do with the met, with the niftar, with the deceased, is a very big mitzvah. And if you see a dead Jew somewhere in the field, unburied, that's called a met mitzvah. Even a Kohen Gadol who's not supposed to become unclean to a met has to be very careful. That is an exception. Met mitzvah is a tremendous, powerful mitzvah that he's supposed to occupy himself immediately with that mitzvah and let everything else go, including his status of Kohen Gadol, his kedusha. And that is why it's called chesed shel emet. It's the truest form of chesed. No reward is being anticipated. He's not going to do you a favor in return. You're simply doing it for the sake of chesed. There's nobody else to do it. And even if there is somebody else to do it, it's still a big mitzvah to partake in it. So, what does he wish? What does he ask of Yosef? Bury me in Israel, not in Egypt. What's the problem in Egypt? There are various reasons. The commentators explain that there was going to be a plague of lice. Who wants to have lice on his body? The Egyptians would make of me an idol. But the real reason, he wants to be with his forefathers, not just to be near to them. But in Chayat HaMetim, when the dead will rise, the dead in Eretz Yisrael rise first, by the way, and the dead in Chutz La'aretz later. Those who were buried in Chutz La'aretz, when they come to Israel, they will roll through tunnels until they reach Israel, and that's where they rise. So this is according to the Kabbalah. This is the way it is explained, that those who were buried outside of Israel, of course, will rise if they deserve to rise, but they need to go through tunnels and they roll. It's a form of pain that they will undergo, not very much, not very painful, but nevertheless some pain until they reach Israel, and that is where they rise. Yaakov did not want this gilgul, in other words, this rolling or having any pain. He wants to be buried in Israel. Eretz Yisrael has a tremendous ma'ara, has a tremendous advantage over other lands. Whoever is buried there, that in itself is like an atonement for his sins. But the Zohar says Eretz Yisrael does not want you to come there with your dead body. The Zohar says, we want you alive there, not dead. In other words, come to me, Eretz Yisrael is saying, come to me while you're alive. And as my father explained, that is what we say in the prayer. That Hashem should take us komemiyut le'artzenu, should take us standing up. What does it mean standing up? Erect. So my father explained, while we are alive and not when we are in a coffin. Erect means while we are alive. One should hopefully have the merit of getting to Eretz Yisrael while he's alive, not that he should have his family transfer his body in a coffin after he's dead. Eretz Yisrael does not want somebody dead, unless, of course, that individual had a kesher, had a bond with Israel. He lived there, he traveled there, he supported the institutions there. So he had a bond with Israel while he was alive, fine, he can be buried there. Otherwise, Eretz Yisrael does not want bodies. It's unclean bodies. I don't want it. When Mashiach comes, a lot of these unclean bodies will be thrown out of Israel. And those, of course, who deserve to be there will come, but will come through a little bit of a painful way by rolling to the tunnel. So Yaakov, of course, for many reasons, wants to be buried in Israel and not anywhere else. All right, Yaakov blesses Yosef, actually blesses the children of Yosef, Ephraim, Manasseh, that all of the Jewish nation, people, every Jewish father, when he blesses his children, should bless him like may you be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Very interesting. Why is Yaakov saying that every Jewish father should bless his children like Ephraim? May you be like Ephraim, may you turn out to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. What's so special about Ephraim and Manasseh more than the rest of the tribes? Basically two things. Number one, Ephraim and Manasseh were the only ones who were born in the diaspora. Everybody else was born in Eretz Canaan, Israel. These two kids are the only ones who were being born in the diaspora. Nevertheless, even though they were in a very, very difficult diaspora, full of tum'ah and impurities, Egypt, and they did not assimilate. They grew up to be respectable people. This is what every father should expect and want and wish for his children. You growing up in the Galut, may you grow up to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, who did not assimilate to the Goyim, to the ways of the Goyim, who did not become corrupted by the ways of the Goyim. That even though they were living in the Galut, they remained tzaddikim, they remained righteous. That is the most beautiful blessing that a father can give to his child, and the most that he can hope for. Ephraim and Manasseh, they are the examples of what every Jew should want his children to be. Growing up in the Galut, but remaining a Jew, remaining dedicated to the Torah and mitzvot. Others say that Ephraim and Manasseh were not jealous of each other. Even though Ephraim received the larger beracha, and he was younger than Manasseh, Manasseh was not jealous of him. The two were not jealous of each other, which is another important quality that all brothers should have and all Jews should have. You not to be jealous of each other. Because jealousy breeds other problems. Machloket, fighting, disagreements, lack of unity, hatred, etc. come out of jealousy. So they are the example for all Jews to be. And they are the ones to be used in a blessing when a father blesses his children. However, what's interesting is that Yaakov tells Yosef, you know what? Yosef, these two boys of yours, Ephraim and Manasseh, they will be tribes, just like Reuven and Shimon. There will be no longer a tribe of Yosef. Now it's Ephraim and Manasseh instead. What's this business of Ephraim and Manasseh being tribes? So if you look at the whole conversation that Yaakov has with Yosef, he tells him some key words that are very, very difficult to understand. As soon as Yaakov becomes sick, a messenger is sent to bring Yosef. Yosef appears to him. Yaakov sits in his bed, and he tells him all sorts of things. And at the very end of the conversation, he says, you know what, by the way, when I was on my way from Padan, Rachel died in the middle of the way. And I buried her in the middle of the way. In Bethlehem. In other words, Rachel was not buried in Marat Machpelah, like Leah, like Rivka, like everybody else. And he feels compelled to tell Yosef, you know what, even though I'm about to ask you to take me to Marat Machpelah, you might feel, well, why should I take you so far? You didn't take my mother. That is a simple meaning. And there's a lot more here. But there's something else here. You know what? Ephraim and Manasseh, these two boys of yours, they were supposed to come out of Rachel. Rachel was supposed to have more Shevatim. Had she not passed away, more tribes would have come out from her. And it would not have been the way it was. It would have been more through her. But because she passed away early, then your children come in her place, in the place of her children, and your children, the ones that were born up until now, Ephraim and Manasseh, they will be the tribes instead. So he's giving Yosef like an extra chilek. He's making him, instead of one tribe, two tribes.
But if Rachel had more sons, how many tribes would there have been?
Things would have been a little bit differently, obviously. I don't know how it would have worked out, but according to the commentaries, Rachel could have had more tribes had she lived longer. So instead, Yosef is being transformed into two tribes. Ephraim and Manasseh are becoming tribes just like Reuven and Shimon. And that is why he brings into his conversation the whole episode with the death of Rachel. Rachel passed away. And by the way, as a result of this, your children will take her place. Your children will become tribes just like Reuven and Shimon. Okay, just a couple more points. Yaakov in this parasha wants to reveal the ketz to his children. The ketz is when Mashiach will come, the time. What is he trying to do? He's trying to instill in them hope. They will be galut, they will work very hard, they will be slaves. Let me tell them that there is an end to all of this. Nevertheless, the Rabbi tells me, at that point, he did not know. The Shekhinah went away and he just had a blockage. In other words, he could no longer tell them about the kids. So Hashem obviously does not want him to tell the kids, and Yaakov did want to tell the kids. Yaakov to instill hope. What about Hashem? What's Hashem's husband of not revealing? Because on the contrary, had he revealed back then the kids, there would have been less hope, because we would know there's so much time yet to go. The kids was not coming right away. There was no reason, no purpose to reveal something so early on. The Malbim says very nicely why in the past 100 or 200 or 300 years there's more reason to talk about the kids. All along the rabbis discouraged it, especially because if you say a time and it does not come, people will lose hope. And we don't really know the kids. So why in the past 100 years is it okay to say? So the Malbim says as follows. Imagine a father and a son who traveled a long distance. The son asks his father, how much more do we have to go? The father does not respond. Second day does not respond. Third day the child asks, the father does not respond. On the last day, right before they're about to arrive at their destination, the son asks again, and now the father tells him, we just have a couple more hours to go. Says the Malbim, it would not have made sense for the father to tell his boy in the very beginning of the trip, in the middle of the trip, how much more you have to go. What good would it do? It doesn't do any good. On the contrary, it makes you feel bad. I still have so much to go. But as we get closer, it makes more sense. You can encourage people, you can tell them there's very little time left, we're almost there. So now it's okay to talk about it now. It's so obvious, we see all the signs being fulfilled, it's coming true. We're witnessing everything that has been written and predicted. So therefore now it makes more sense. But back then, what would Yaakov gain? Hashem did not therefore want him to reveal that time. Otherwise, we could also say that it doesn't make sense to reveal a time because there's two times that Mashiach can come, either be'ita or be'achishena. Ita meaning at the very last possible moment, or achishena means which Hashem will speed or accelerate the time. He could have only have known ita. Nobody knows achishena. Hashem can decide at any given moment for Mashiach to come. That nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. Only Hashem. So there's no reason to reveal a date if Hashem can make it happen before then too. If we will be zocheh, or if things will get any worse. Unfortunately, we're holding closer to Eitah, which is the last possible moment. After all, there's not that much time left till the year 6000, so it has to be that we have approached Eitah, the time of Eitah. Okay, the last point, Parashat Vayechi, is that Yosef's brothers feel bad after all what they did. After Yaakov passes away, they feel maybe right now that Yaakov is not alive, maybe now he'll get back at us. And they beg him to forgive them. And he says, don't worry, what are you talking about? I'm not going to take any revenge. First of all, what am I in place of God? What am I? I can do whatever I want. You thought to do something bad against me, but in the end, Hashem's plan was to do something good for all of us. Look, as a result of this, me being in Egypt, what I was able to do and provide for everybody, the food, the planning, and so forth. So obviously, ultimately, what came out of this was good. So how could you think I would, take revenge, feel bad towards you? In the end, it was all good. What is Yosef trying to say? We know that if a person wants to do an averah, a sin, a transgression against God, and he does not succeed, but at least he had a desire, he had a plan, he wanted to do it, That's no good. Hashem does not punish him for that because there was no maaseh. He did not carry it out. However, he would still bring a korban olah. The sacrifice of olah, one of the reasons for olah was for hirhurim, for machshavot lo tovot, for bad thoughts. Person wanted to do something bad. He thought about something bad. That's not good too. It's not nice to have bad thoughts. So that would be a speck, perhaps, on his neshama. It would not be nice for him to do so. However, the other way around, if it's with ben adam lechavero, if it's between man and man, if one wants to do something against his friend and he does not succeed, and on the contrary, something good came out, you wanted to give him poison, in the end it was wine. By mistake, you didn't intend it. Is that any bad? No, on the contrary, something good came out of it. You're not punished for it. You're not hayav anything, not in this world, not in the world to come. Because nothing bad came out of it. Nothing harmful came out of it. Okay, nothing bad came out of it. On the contrary, something good came out of it, so he would not be punished. Following? That is what Yosef is telling his brothers over here. There's nothing for you to feel bad. Nothing for you to feel bad whatsoever. You felt you wanted to do something bad to me. Hashem's whole plan, Hashem's whole strategy was something good. Now, what happens, the rabbis tell us, is that if a person wants to do something bad, Hashem uses him as a vehicle. Right? Somebody that wants to do something good, Hashem uses him to do something good, something positive. Somebody that wants to do something bad, Hashem can use him as a vehicle for something that Hashem wants to accomplish. Hashem used the Egyptians to enslave the Jews. Had the Egyptians not overdone it and not exaggerated the pain on the Jews, they cannot be punished. Hashem wanted them to do it. They're shalichim. No, but they overdid it. That is why they were punished. That you were not asked to overdo it. But if you do Hashem's will, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't overdo it. Don't do it on your own. Hashem therefore uses people who He knows want to kill, want to steal, and somebody deserves that. He brings the two together. Somebody that wants to do a mitzvah, he wants to help, he wants to do a good deed. Somebody deserves that. Hashem brings them together. Your intention was bad, but Hashem all along had another idea, a good idea, a positive idea, and He used you. And it did not turn out exactly what you wanted to do. It turned out like Hashem wanted to do. Therefore, you don't have to feel bad, because in the end, your actions brought about only good. So there's nothing to feel bad about. Therefore, why should we be angry at you if in the end result was good? And the end result of everything Hashem does is good. Everything that Hashem does in the world is really good. We don't see it right now, but in the end, if we live long enough, or when Mashiach comes, we will definitely see all the good that there was in Hashem's plan. With everything in the world, now we don't see it. Man to man, of course. People are bad. People could do bad things. They have free will. But Hashem, nothing bad comes out from Hashem. We don't see it. We don't have eyes to see. When Mashiach will come, we will be able to see all the good.